unfiltered discussions, unexpected guests. No topic is off limits, from sex and relationships to the human condition, personal anxieties, and so much more. The only talk show of its kind in the world. This is The Last Show with David Cooper.
Hello and welcome. It's The Last Show. No update from my cat today, but let me tell you about tonight's program. We'll cover marriage proposals. They're a big deal, right? People cry, they take photos, they say yes, usually. But for straight couples, one thing never changes. The dude does the asking. So what happens when women pop the question? Does the universe end? Do earthquakes happen? Does an engagement ring explode? Well, we'll find out. I will talk to two people who did research, scholarly academic research, on why it's so rare for women to propose to men, and just what happens when they do. After that, it'll be time for technology time. That's the time of the week we cover technology stories. Timely ones at that. Recent ones. And something we'll highlight this week I'm insanely curious about. A certain company is planning on giving us Star Trek level features soon. That's right, live translation earbuds. This could unlock travel in deep ways. Basically, Star Trek's universal translators here. And, well, are we ready for it? That and more coming up halfway through the hour. All right, that is merely a cross-section of tonight's great program. Let's jump into it.
Want to be part of The Last Show with David Cooper? Call us and join the conversation. 1-888-505-6644.
And if you're going to pretend to be something, why on earth would you choose that news? A woman on Long Island in New York was arrested for running a fake dental practice out of her house. If you're going to pretend to be something, why on earth would you choose that? A dentist. Now, if I'm impersonating a profession, I'm picking something glamorous. Astronaut, rock star, Prince of Liechtenstein, something where, worst case scenario, I embarrass myself at a dinner party. But no, this woman said, you know what I want to fake? The one profession where people already mostly hate you. Authorities say the 55-year-old woman pulled off the scam for 8 years. 8 years. That's drilling, that's scraping, that's tooth pulling, or is it teeth pulling? For 8 years. This means there are people walking around Long Island right now with teeth that are held together by hopes and prayers and that strong spirit of, nobody can tell me what I can and can't do. Turns out one of this fraudulent dentist's patients reports nerve damage and facial paralysis. So basically, she turned them into an extra from a Scorsese movie. Police raided the woman's house and found a fully functional dental office, x-rays, drills, probably a little sink that no one knows how to spit in correctly. And this part I love. While practicing illegitimate dentistry, she didn't even use proper anesthesia. Just a little local numbing. Don't worry, a root canal, an extraction, a little numbing cream will do the trick. I imagine she'd say things like, this won't hurt too much. On my end? Come on. Any real dentist would knock you out cold before going treasure hunting in your molars, or at least offer you optional gas. Always say yes. The fake dentists mostly treated patients who couldn't afford regular care, which sounds nice, but it's also kind of tragic because if you're desperate enough to go to a back alley dentist, the United States' healthcare system might be the real criminal here. But still no excuse. For example, if you can't afford therapy, do not go to just some random person's house and let them hypnotize you with a pocket watch. The day of the dental bust, one of the woman's neighbors saw 15 cop cars swarm her house. Imagine coming home from work and seeing an illegal dental sting operation. Honey, the police are here. They finally got the guy who keeps stealing our Amazon packages. Oh, no, sorry, wait, that's just our local underground tooth mechanic. The woman now faces charges of practicing dentistry without a license, and the cops are urging more patients to come forward to build their case. So if you went to some random person's house for a dental appointment recently and your fillings are held together with crazy glue, maybe give the cops a call. As ever, folks, there is a moral to this story. If you find yourself in some random person's house, practicing shoddy dentistry without proper anesthetic, right out of their living room, maybe don't let them near your gums, or at least Ask them for their insurance first. It is the evening of Thursday, March the 20th, and I'm sure that you already know this. You're probably already celebrating with your little green friends. But it is National Alien Abduction Day. And happy National Alien Abduction Day to you. Now, I know what you're thinking. Finally, a holiday that acknowledges everything I've been through in life. But no, this is about actual aliens. Not the unsettling shadow in the corner of your bedroom that you hope is just your coat rack. Or my cat. Not sure what my cat's doing in your home, but I digress. To celebrate, I've got some good news if you're hoping to get beamed up. The fair nation of Canada now has official stats on where you're most likely to be abducted. And if you thought government research funding was tight, and why are they funding this? Fear not. The data comes from casino.ca, a website you underestimated in terms of their commitment to intergalactic data science. So where in Canada are you most likely to wake up in an alien mothership with missing time and an oddly sore lower back, if you know what I mean? I'm talking about your tailbone. Turns out, and maybe you should hop in the car right now, the province of Ontario takes the top spot with 1 in 667 people spotting a UFO. The more sightings, the more likely for an abduction. It stands to reason. Coming in close second, Alberta. 1 in 700 people report a sighting. If you live in Newfoundland and Labrador, though, your chances are significantly lower. Slightly better than 1 in 9,000, which to me makes sense. If you're an alien searching for intelligent life, all you'll find there is an endless stretch of fog and a lighthouse, and you'll want to move on. Now back to number 2, Alberta. There's a history of UFO stuff there. The town of St. Paul claims to have the world's first UFO landing pad, built in 1967 as part of Canada's centennial celebrations. Because nothing says national pride like telling extraterrestrials, sure, land here, we've got free beer, and, well, we've got free beer. The town of Vulcan, Alberta takes it a little further. It's basically a Star Trek fan club that has its own postal code. They've got space murals, a Star Trek-themed visitor center, and presumably at least one guy who insists he's actually Spock. Vulcan's the planet where Spock is from. Now, I know what you're thinking. Do aliens even exist? And while I appreciate your sudden interest in philosophy, the short answer is, well, no one knows. But astrobiologists say there's not good scientific evidence of intelligent life beyond Earth. I say there's not good scientific evidence of intelligent life on Earth. I digress. NASA's James Webb Telescope is out there scanning the cosmos for us, looking for life. But even with all that fancy tech, we're talking needle in a haystack status. Except the haystack is the size of a continent, and the needle's, well, still the size of a needle. So for now, all we have is speculation. Oh, and those blurry, probably fake photos of gray aliens and stuff, and that one guy at every party who swears he's been abducted, but just woke up in a field missing a shoe in his underwear. Speaking of which, a lot of UFO sightings turn out to be, well, very explainable. Weather balloons, satellites, military aircraft, even Venus shining extra bright. And then there's that classic alien abduction experience, which scientists say is often just sleep paralysis. So if you wake up unable to move and you feel like you're surrounded by otherworldly beings, it might not be aliens. It could be my cat on your chest, silently judging you. Again, what is my cat doing on your chest? So hey, if you truly believe you saw something strange, you can report it. Every country's got some sort of national UFO reporting center, right? And if you're a pilot, tell Transport Canada or the FAA. Though the government warns if you do make a report, you might get some funny looks at your Christmas party. So whether you're a skeptic, a believer, or someone who really just wants to hitch a ride off planet, happy National Alien Abduction Day. And if you do get abducted, try to negotiate the secret to faster than light space travel, or just a foolproof way to reheat pizza without turning it into rubber. Either of those pieces of knowledge would change humanity forever. Live long and prosper. Up next, what happens when women flip the script and propose to men for marriage? Does the world end? Or do we end up with kind of hilarious and amazing new scripts that go against the traditional ones? Find out in a moment.
Want to be part of the last show with David Cooper? Call us and join the conversation. 1-888-505-6644. turning headline news into punchline gold. 5 nights a week. The Last Show with David Cooper.
Marriage proposals are a big deal. People cry, they take photos, and they say yes, usually. But for heterosexual couples, one thing almost never changes. The dude is the one doing the asking. What happens when a woman pops the question instead, though? Does the world end? Do birds fall from the sky? Do engagement rings explode? I'm here with Dr. Daniela Pirani. Daniela, welcome.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Also here with Dr. Vera Hoelscher.
Thank you so much for having us.
The both of you studied this topic. You wrote a paper on it. And so I guess let's start here. Why do so few women propose to their male fiancés? And why does this feel so taboo to some people?
So actually, we don't really know how many women truly propose to their male partners. It might actually be quite a lot. The thing is that in our primary analysis, when we started off with this topic, with our netnography, we looked at this proposal profile on Instagram, and it's called How They Asked. And we found that it was the very fewest of all of those proposal posts that were women really celebrating them proposing to their male partners. And that is because I suppose it's also this world stage of being seen as a woman who proposes to a man. Whereas then when you talk a little bit about your research, you introduce yourself as a researcher, and all of a sudden say, oh yeah, I proposed marriage to my husband, etc. So there's, I think, a really big dark number that we just don't know about.
For those that have opinions on this, why do they think it's something that shouldn't be done? Why aren't more women proposing, do you think?
Well, we have looked really from the other side, right, of women who decided to take this big step. And to be fair, we noticed that there are many women that kind of do, careers or, life choices that are all about taking the initiative. So when it comes down to their private life, they feel the same way. And there's a lot about equality in general. And of course, this sort of trickles down to private life and how you want to move on with your relationships. But there's also the idea of how things should be done properly, and that's where expectations come along. So both Vera and I talked about in great lengths, right? For example, on the fact that there is no equivalent of the diamond ring. So even the fact that the market doesn't offer something that really marks the moment and shows that this is the real thing. And on the other hand, if you think about the meaning that the rock has, right? Like the Instagram posts, the moment of showing off that, yes, you're really engaged. And there is no equivalent on one hand. And on the other, of course, the expectations of people around you. So we had some participants revealing how their families were disappointed. So they were perfectly fine with having taken the initiative, but their mothers were really sad about, not having had that sort of fairy tale proposals for their daughters. So I think that societal expectations are still in place, and they're connected to this sense that your relationship is real and, you're doing things the proper way.
Things aren't perfect for women by any means. I'm not making that claim, but things have gotten better in terms of equality over, let's say, the last 100 years. Why is this an area where it seems like no leaps and strides have been made at all? That you're saying, there's not even a market offering for women to propose to men. They got to kind of make it up. They can't choose a diamond or a rock or anything like that.
So first of all, I've got to say that some people are really having fun with these alternative objects, particularly the American ones. So they're thinking of, shall I get him a fedora, or shall I get him a laptop? That might break. Or perhaps a gun. He really wants a gun. Or is that a little bit like giving a knife? It's like, maybe not the best idea. So there are these alternative modes of using objects to propose that are being had fun with. But there's also this opposite narrative, this narrative of, in Britain we had Waity Katie, which was a really derogatory term for the now Princess of Wales when she was supposedly not being proposed to by William. And then we really coded a lot for this, where it's seen as desperation. We called it engagement rage. And I must say, my husband and I, we also talked a lot about engagement rage also prior to me conducting this research project, prior to us being engaged ourselves, that we were talking about couples, and he said, I've got the sense so-and-so, that my colleague, she talked about this or that, and she's really got engagement rage.
What is engagement rage? I love this term.
Engagement rage is this notion that you have to wait as a woman to get proposed to, but that enrages you. And it is something that we coded a lot in the data. And that also, in some cases, drove women to say, well, if he doesn't do it by then, I will ask him. Whereas in other cases in our data is much more like, well, I'm a feminist. I'm going to do this because I want to be able to do this. But what the core finding really is, I suppose, to answer your question, is that this is the trope. This is the trope of the white wedding. A lot of women also perpetuate lots of these other things. So it's not just men perpetuating this, of course. It's also in part women. They want to be asked. Many women want to be asked. And other things that are perpetuated is this trope around women wanting their fiance to ask their father's hand, the father for their hand in marriage.
Yes.
And actually, in our sample, we had women who, again, had a lot of fun with this. So they asked the mother for their son's hand in marriage, for instance.
I like that.
Yes. Really fun. And who would then, for instance, get the wedding rings from the grandfather. And then the fiance, when he realized it was his grandfather's wedding ring, he really teared up, and it just kind of became more real to him, just how much this also meant for the family.
I'm asking about the negatives here, the stereotypes, why this perpetuates. What are some of the fun examples that you saw in what you reviewed of proposals?
Oh, yeah, we had so many good ones, really. My favorite, I would say, is one of our participants who proposed by writing "Marry Me" on a pizza with mushrooms. And apparently, and this, I love it, honestly. And the best part of it is that he didn't realize straight away. So he just saw the pizza and got distracted and we're like, oh, yeah, amazing. And she's like, no, please read it. So there is this sense of like being completely playful. Another one welcomed her partner with an inflatable balloon shaped like a diamond ring at the airport. So they had this sort of like weird plasticky thing, floating above their heads. And everyone kind of like was wondering, what is she about to do? And then she proposed to the guy as soon as, arrived at the airport. So they had sort of creative, playful moments, all things that, if you think about, wouldn't go down if we reverse the genders, right? Like these wouldn't be considered acceptable ways of proposing if was a guy.
You're saying that no woman wants to be proposed to with a mushroom pizza?
With a pizza. Well, maybe. But there is the script is so strong that most of the conversation you find online and, in online communities is around the size of the ring, and how much should it cost. There is a gazillion of articles there on how much money a guy should spend. While having, none of these references, women could really go a bit wild.
Well, I guess the advice is for couples who are just falling into these traditional narratives just because they haven't thought about it and they're listening now, flip the script. Why not? Vera, thank you for joining me today. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much, David.
And Daniela, thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Dr. Daniela Pirani is a senior lecturer in marketing at the University of Liverpool, and Dr. Vera Hoelscher is a lecturer in marketing at the Royal Holloway University in the United Kingdom. In a few moments, an amazing new technology. It's a universal translator right out of Star Trek, kind of. How does it all work? And will you be able to go to foreign countries and understand everyone soon? Find out next.
Want to be part of the last show with David Cooper? Call us and join the conversation. 1-888 505 6644. We're here because your heightened awareness deserves heightened entertainment. The Last Show with David Cooper.
Do we live in a future where you can wear an earpiece and that earpiece will translate everything everyone around you is saying? No matter the language, sounds like Star Trek, might not be. It's time for Technology Time with Carmi Levy. We discuss the tech stories of the day. Carmi, oh, what a pleasure. Thank you.
Oh, the pleasure is all mine, David. So great to be back with you. Thanks for having me.
I don't even know what I was thanking you for, but just thank you, Carmi.
Yeah, and thank you. It doesn't have to be for anything specific. Just the fact that you're you. That's all that matters.
When I used to watch Star Trek, they have something called the Universal Translator, which translates most alien languages to English. But what I don't understand is it somehow translates in the people's brains the movements of their mouth to be English words. It's a slightly unrealistic point.
Yeah. Don't question Gene Roddenberry.
Thou should take off your shoes. You're in the presence of the sci-fi lord. But with where we're going in terms of like generative AI, audio recognition to text translation, translation's getting better and better. I mean, Google Translate now is so much better than it was 5 or 10 years ago. It shouldn't surprise you that a product where you can wear an earpiece and it translates a foreign language is just around the corner. That shouldn't surprise anyone, Carmi.
No, it shouldn't. I mean, if you think of the technologies that make real-time translation possible, they really are now increasingly incorporated into our phones, into our earbuds, into the networks that we use, into the cloud services that power all of that technology. So, looking at something like a pair of AirPods, they're not just a pair of wireless earphones. They're a platform unto themselves, and they can do things that would have been considered science fiction just a few years ago. And that sort of universal translator, Tower of Babel type capability. If you think about all those little pieces of technology coming together, we're a lot closer to it than we were even just a few years ago. Even now, starting to see reports from Bloomberg that Apple will be adding live translate to their AirPods later this year, and you won't even have to buy a new pair of AirPods to take advantage of it. It'll just come to you in the form of a software update. We really are living in the future. This is science fiction come to life.
I was once on the metro in Paris when I was a kid. I went there with my ex-wife in our early 20s. Well, that was a lifetime ago. And I understand French, not amazingly, but enough to, especially back then.
Yeah.
And we were on the metro, and this French guy was like making fun of us for being like, they called us Americans, we were Canadians, but what do they know? For being like tourists. And we understood what he was saying.
Little did he know.
I feel like those little connections you have with people who speak your native language when you're in a foreign country where you can talk smack about foreigners and stuff, that's all going to disappear.
and that's, maybe that's not necessarily a bad thing, right? We should remove opportunities for people to be unkind. But, this is really neat. Imagine being in the middle of a place where you don't speak the language and you pop your AirPods in and they detect automatically that, this is not your language. And they instantly start translating what they're hearing. So suddenly you can understand what people are saying. It can break down barriers between different languages and different cultures and different geographies. And, maybe it might lead to some, interesting situations in strange lands. But at the same time, it'll allow us to experience more of the world than we currently do. And it won't limit us simply because we don't speak the language. There already is. iPhones have had a Translate app since iOS 14, but an interesting, and I didn't even know it was there until I started researching this story, but that's the thing. If it sits on your phone, you're probably not going to use it. We don't use 98% of the apps on our phone. And it just gathers dust. So who's going to stand there in the middle of a conversation or on the Paris metro holding up their phone to translate what's going on? But if you just have these things in your ear and it's just part of the experience, that's a whole different story. It means we're going to go from having it stuck in an app on a phone that nobody uses to maybe we are going to use it out in the real world because no one's going to know that we have that capability. And it expands our horizons a little bit. And I think that's by definition a really good thing.
Yeah.
I speak French. I grew up in Montreal. I'd probably just switch to French, if I were in Paris and being insulted because I'm, a maudit Canadien. But at the same time, there are people who, and I know my late mother-in-law used to struggle in French. And this could have opened up her world a little bit more if this had been available to her. And I think there are a lot of people who will come out of their shells because of this technology. It can't not be a good thing.
The privacy you lose when talking in your mother tongue that I mentioned is a tiny downside of this. I also see a future where it's two-way, right? You listen to a foreigner, someone who doesn't speak the same language as you, or maybe you're in a foreign country. It gets translated in your ear. You respond in English, and all you got to do is hold your phone in your hand. You don't need to be looking at the screen. It's just the speaker on the phone. You respond in English. The mic on the headset picks it up and then says it in that person's language out of your phone. So you're just basically holding a little speaker in your hand. That's all the phone's doing. And that one next step, it opens up the whole world to everybody. I could go to Mongolia and have dinner with some farmers. I could go to the tip of Africa and hang out in I don't know where. I could go anywhere, do anything. It's an amazing, this one single thing could break down barriers in amazing ways.
Exactly. Like think about just our ability to just natively expose ourselves to different languages and different cultures. And even if we don't speak the language, we could become familiar with their customs, with who they are, their families, their communities. And think of how that could break down barriers between different people. Think of how that can address things like hatred and xenophobia, because, obviously that fear of the other is what drives much of what we're seeing in the world today. Imagine if a technology, and I know it seems, somewhat, it seems somewhat naive to think that a technology could allow that to happen. But I grew up on Star Trek, and I remember reading about the Universal Translator and always, asking, how does that work? How does it break down barriers between languages? I was just naive enough to believe then, and I still am, that it can lead to a better world and a better universe. And we're just on the cusp of this now becoming possible. And in just a few years, it'll go from being this cool new feature that we all have on our devices to something that we don't even think twice about using when we wander into a different city where everybody speaks a different language. That's going to change the way we live.
I think John Lennon missed a lyric in his song Imagine. Imagine there's a universal translator in your ear with a paired speaker that would let you speak with people around the world. It's easy if you try.
He would have no doubt approved of it, and there probably would have been a follow-up to the song if he were still with us. Thanks, John.
Carmi, last Tuesday, I had a comedian on who just put a funny little video on the internet with a funny little idea. He put two and two together. He linked the adult entertainment website, the parent company of Pornhub, and their residence in Montreal, their headquarters in Montreal, a Canadian company, with the fact that it's the number one supplier of online adult entertainment in the U.S., and humorously said to win the trade war or to get a leg up in the train war. Choo-choo! To get a leg up in the trade war, you could just cut that website off from the U.S. And I know I covered it on Tuesday, but it's such a funny idea. And it is a tech story. I don't know, could the Canadian government somehow control the export of adult entertainment online, thereby cutting the Americans off? And then what would the American people do?
They would have to use an alternative porn site, I guess. I don't know. But I mean, first of all, as a Montrealer, right? And when I found out that Pornhub was based in Montreal, that it was the leading platform for this kind of thing in the world, I was kind of appalled, but I was also somewhat intrigued. It's like, what is it about Montreal that makes it friendly to become the home of the biggest porn site in the world? And could the Canadian government, in theory, do this? I mean, I know this is funny, but it really does kind of ask, it asks the question, is this even possible? And the short answer is yes, it is. I mean, anytime you're online, you can your traffic is geolocated. It can be blocked using easily available technology. We already see a number of states in the U.S. that have banned Pornhub. Other states have deliberately blocked access to it. So can it be done? Absolutely. Should it be done? It'd be fun to see Canada using that as a lever. I say this isn't just a joke. Let's give it a try and see what happens.
And it's kind of cruel fool to the adult entertainment company. They're just trying to make a buck or two, doing their thing, selling videos. And now it's like, well, they probably still want to sell to the US because that's their bread and butter. We're here with Carmi Levy. It's time for technology time. When we come back, we'll look at Google's biggest cash purchase of a cybersecurity company and why they spent so much money on the deal.
Want to be part of the last show with David Cooper? Call us and join the conversation. 1-888-505-6644. The last show with David Cooper. Procrastinate your life away with us.
It is time for technology time. We are about to discuss Google, which is a company that has at least $15 or $20 in its bank account. Google's biggest acquisition yet in cash. I'm here with Carmi Levy, a technology expert based out of London, Ontario, Canada. Carmi, welcome back. And why should I be so excited about Google's acquisition of the security group Wiz? I'm the Wiz. That's from Seinfeld.
Because it means that Google wants to ensure that it has the tools to be a cloud security powerhouse. The world is moving AI, and everyone is storing all of their data on the cloud. And if Google can make sure that it is absolutely secure from end to end, which is what Wiz provides, it scans data on a cloud platform to make sure that it is not vulnerable to cybersecurity risk, then it can then drive its intention to become an AI powerhouse. It can fight against Microsoft. It can fight against Amazon, who, respectively, Azure and Web Services. Google is an also-ran third place in the cloud race. And so really it's Google trying to become relevant in the cloud services world, especially as search becomes yesterday's news, not tomorrow's. And so they bid $23 billion for it last year, US. They were turned down. They came back with a $32 billion bid. They sweetened it. And now it looks like Wiz is going to accept the deal.
Well, we hear a lot about AI companies now, but I worry about a future where AI is used to hack, maybe even autonomously. I don't think we're so far away for generative AI to write exploitative computer code to break into servers, steal passwords, credit card numbers, money, whatever, and then execute it kind of autonomously. Right now, we have automated phishing scams where companies get blasted with emails with links that if the employees click them, they give away their passwords. There's already this automated arm of hacking that exists out there. AI is going to make this worse.
Exactly. And if you're a company like Google, that's not your core competency. You have not developed technology that can counter that AI-powered threat. So you look to companies like Wiz that have developed that best-of-breed technology that protects cloud platforms, that protects you and me and all the companies that use these cloud platforms from this kind of growing and significant threat. And so that's why Wiz is as important as it is. It could allow Google to grow its business. Perhaps large government agencies and large companies will look to Google and say, you're a lot safer than Microsoft and Amazon and Oracle. And so you're going to keep me safer in this AI era. I'm going to go with you and I'm going to subscribe to your cloud-based cybersecurity service. That's really what this is all about. They're saying that business, cloud security, is going to be worth about $1 trillion when all is said and done. So there's a lot of money on the line here. And certainly artificial intelligence is turning security assumptions on its ear, especially as more of these services move into the cloud. So, it's the biggest bet they've ever made. They have never spent as much as they have on any one acquisition or one company. And Google is saying this is going to be their future. And if they fail here, well, they may as well pack up their tents and go home.
The problem with cybersecurity in an AI age is back in the day, you'd have malicious hackers and people trying to stop them. And it would be kind of like an arms race. The malicious hackers would come up with a way to get a bug going that would make them be able to steal data, passwords, money.
Yeah. Never-ending cops and robbers game.
Exactly. But with AI, the cops, an AI that's scanning Google's platform for vulnerabilities, if it patches them automatically, you can't trust the AI. The AI might not patch the vulnerabilities properly. because AI doesn't always do what you want it to do 100% of the time.
That's right. It hallucinates, it goes rogue, it gets it wrong.
Okay, if you're a hacker coming up with AI-generated exploits, what's the worst is going to happen if the AI hallucinates? The hack is just not going to work. But if you're a company trying to patch your code with AI, you've got to check everything it does, because if it hallucinates, you're in trouble. So AI is really going to give malicious hackers an advantage, and companies trying to defend against them can't really use it to automatically defend themselves. There has to be manual intervention. People have to look at it and say, did the AI patch the bug properly? Am I making sense? I'm just saying, as AI escalates and gets used in the hacking world, malicious hackers are going to have a much bigger leg up than companies like Google. And this just fuels the argument that the future, this $1 trillion business you're saying, is going to be a big one, because it's going to be a big concern protecting companies against this.
Yeah, I'm absolutely inclined to believe or to agree with you, simply because AI allows cyber criminals to have scale. It allows them to launch bigger, more powerful, more damaging, more frequent attacks in a more automated way. And of course, the consequences for them, well, it didn't work this time, but we've got a million other in the pipeline. Whereas if you're on the receiving end of that, the consequences of even one failure are almost too significant to consider. So we are kind of in this new era, and companies like Google are hoping that they can make those promises to everyone who uses their platform. We are safer than everyone else, and they're willing to pay big to have that ability and bring it in-house with Wiz. So it'll be interesting to see where this goes, but certainly I would expect to see Microsoft, Amazon, and Oracle also sort of pump up their cybersecurity capabilities in the cloud as AI becomes an even bigger threat. And we're probably going to see more deals like this in the months to come.
I want to go back to 2019. I think it was December, just before the pandemic. The movie Cats was released. And I think then we should have known that the Lord, if he or she exists, was going to punish us, because that movie was just...
I couldn't even watch the trailers. It was just that bad.
Then on March 18th, Tuesday of this week, like the 5-year anniversary, March 18th, 2025, Gal Gadot did that Imagine video with all those celebrities. And you remember that? And it was so like all these celebrities like, oh, the pandemic, we're walled up in our mansions in Los Angeles suffering. And it was so tone deaf. And I just want to do a story about tone deaf celebrities, because hundreds of celebrities are warning that OpenAI is going to exploit Hollywood. And I can't help but think, poor celebrities, just like Gal Gadot's Imagine. It's like, oh, you guys are suffering with your maids and your servants and your mansions. Like, oh, you couldn't go to, you're like swimming in your pool over here, and I'm trapped in an apartment.
I think, and so they've signed a letter, and OpenAI and Google, they want to use their AI models to train on copyrighted content. They don't want to have to arrange licensing every time they use content to train their models. They just want it to be considered fair use, which under current copyright laws, so that they don't have to negotiate and pay, and it keeps their costs down. Of course, artists like actors and writers and movie makers have long pushed back against this. This is why we had the Hollywood strikes in the first place, is that they don't want platforms to abuse their power to essentially remove creators, remove creatives from the equation, or take away their ability to make money from their craft. And so this has been an ongoing pitched battle in Hollywood for a very long time. And I know that it feels at first blush, it feels easy to just look at, folks like Ben Stiller and Mark Ruffalo and even Paul McCartney, who signed to Kate Blanchett.
You're right, Carmi.
But that's the thing. They are the very tip of the acting apex, and there are millions more actors out there who barely make ends meet, and they could potentially be wiped off the map and rendered unable to even have a fair to middling career in acting if companies like OpenAI and Google are allowed to train on their content without having to pay licensing fees. And so I think this really is that it's the entire creative industry has been fighting this. We've seen authors launch lawsuits, we've seen filmmakers launch lawsuits, and musicians as well. And I think it's an important line in the sand. I certainly wouldn't want to, I understand Paul McCartney, no one's going to be holding a garage sale for him, but he has the resources to do it for so many other actors and other creatives who don't have that kind of name recognition, and certainly don't have the a bank account anywhere near as large as his.
Watch something amazing happen in real time. I've changed my opinion. Yes, poor celebrities, but for independent artists, small filmmakers, this is absolutely necessary. And I do think there should be guardrails on this. And I do think big AI companies should have to pay to consume people's art. I'm changing my opinion completely.
All right. Love it. Look at you, the man of the hour. Love it.
Carmi, thank you so much.
Thanks, David.
Carmi Levy is a tech expert based out of London, Canada. If you want to learn about ADHD, think you might have it? Don't go on TikTok. But why? Why shouldn't we? And isn't any learning about mental health issues a good thing? Answers coming up soon. I am David Cooper. This is The Last Show.
Prepare to have your mind blown as we delve into the complexities of relationships, explore the cutting edge of science, and celebrate the bizarre and beautiful absurdity of the world around us. This is The Last Show with David Cooper.
Attention Deficit Hyperactivity Disorder, ADHD. Want to learn more about it? Maybe you want to self-diagnose. Well, TikTok is full of ADHD advice, but a lot of it is wrong. Misinformation is rampant on this platform. Our guest actually studied this and found out what wrong info is shaping young people and how they see ADHD. But maybe more people talking about it on TikTok and talking about neurodevelopmental disorders is a good thing. We're going to chat about this with Vasileia Karasavva. She's a clinical psychology PhD student at the University of British Columbia in Canada. Vasileia, thank you for joining me today.
Thank you for having me.
So what made you want to look into ADHD misinformation on TikTok? I know I see my friends watching videos and I'm like, what that person said is not true. Don't believe them. But why ADHD? Why look into this?
So our lab, the Pear Lab at the University of British Columbia, studies ADHD. And my friend and second author, Caroline Miller, and I found ourselves sending each other a lot of TikToks about ADHD. And one day we just stopped and asked ourselves, hey, are we seeing a lot of ADHD-related content because we are in a lab that studies ADHD? Or is this kind of the average experience of users? And we thought, hey, why not be systematic about it and actually study it? We are in grad school after all.
Cool. Yeah, no, I think that's what happens, right? If you're curious about something on TikTok, the algorithm immediately starts giving you that content. So while you're researching it and looking up videos, anyone who's curious about it is going to get those same videos. So what did you find the videos that were presented to you contained by and large?
So a lot of those videos described ADHD, but did so in a way that doesn't really match up the diagnostic criteria of ADHD. So a lot of those claims fell under multiple categories. For example, it could describe something that is a symptom of a different disorder. Like, for example, binging large amounts of food could be better explained by binge eating disorder. Other claims better describe things that are associated with ADHD, but are not diagnostic criteria of ADHD, like difficulties in social relationships. And of course, there's a wealth of literature that shows that people with ADHD struggle in social relationships, and it makes sense. If you're an impulsive person, if you cut other people off when they're trying to speak, forget to text other people, I am one of those people, it makes sense why you would struggle in your social relationships. However, there are so many other factors that are related to that, like your personality, your temperament, how much time you have to invest in your friendships, that we can't really say that it's a diagnostic factor of ADHD.
That's so interesting, like symptoms versus diagnostic criteria. Like I didn't know that, and I could have fallen victim to misinformation not knowing that myself.
Absolutely. It's so easy to do that if you're a lay person and you not really know about the diagnostic criteria. And if you see the DSM in and of itself, it looks kind of bare bones. However, you have to remember that the people who diagnose you have training in this and know how to read through the lines of the DSM. So they know how to ask more follow-up questions and really understand how those very narrow symptoms that appear that would only apply to children would apply to an adult.
And the DSM being the manual that doctors and psychologists and practitioners use to diagnose official disorders, I guess.
Exactly, the Diagnostics and Statistical Manual, yes.
Why do you think these videos that contain this misinformation are being surfaced to people as opposed to ones that might contain accurate information?
Well, they are very cute and fun and entertaining. We tried in our lab to make a video that we would show our participants in our study that explained kind of the symptoms of ADHD. And we quickly realized we're not good at this. We're not interesting and entertaining people, probably. And I imagine it's just very dry and boring to listen to a clinical psychologist or a psychiatrist just kind of like talk about a list of symptoms. The other huge positive is that people are looking for community and they're looking for people to share their own personal experiences. So a huge caveat in our study that we try to also talk a lot about is that the main goal of a lot of those creators was probably not to educate people about what ADHD was, but to share their own idiosyncratic experiences. So that's something we should keep in mind.
I think it's really easy to be all fire and brimstone about TikTok spreading misinformation. But as I alluded to in your introduction, there's this other side of it. More people talking about neurodevelopmental disorders. Isn't that kind of a good thing? Like having a more open conversation against something historically stigmatized?
Oh, absolutely. It's incredibly beneficial. I think there's nothing more human than people trying to understand their own self and their own experiences. I think the world would be a better place if more of us were more introspective in general. And let's not forget how difficult it is to get access to a psychologist or a psychiatrist. In Canada, in order to get an ADHD diagnosis, you have to have a referral, you have to wait multiple months, and then pay thousands of dollars in order to get a diagnosis. However, people who don't necessarily meet the diagnostic criteria doesn't mean that they wouldn't benefit from support or help. But here comes the catch-22. If you are on insurance, you absolutely need a diagnosis in order to get help and support. So I think just TikTok in many ways has democratized access to mental health information, and that's a great thing.
I'm Canadian. I've had a therapist when I lived in Canada. I've navigated that system. It is not easy. I live in the US now, like with private healthcare, and that's another nightmare in terms of access on so many levels. Like I'm on my girlfriend's health insurance. If she loses her job, I lose my shrink. Now, you talked about this, psychologists, other mental health professionals. Do you think the antidote to this is them getting on TikTok and them trying to relate their personal experiences, getting better at creating videos, basically?
It could be part of the solution, could be for more healthcare workers to be on TikTok. Part of it could be content creators, maybe consulting with healthcare workers. We could also say that the viewers could be more careful about the videos they consume. But all these changes are on the individual level. What I think will help the most is having more systemic changes to make sure that people have access to the healthcare that they need. What I think our study tapped into is people recognizing that they're struggling and needing support, and they're not having good options in order to get that support. And the only free and accessible one they have is TikTok, which might not be the best one.
Well, we're on the radio right now. You have training, you're studying this stuff. What are some of the correct facts that you would want people to hear? And then other things that if people hear it, to just treat it as anecdotal, maybe not a good fact to self-diagnose with?
So some of the things that we showed that weren't very good were things that are better described as parts of the human experience. So having a sweet tooth, listening to the same song over and over, really liking The Office or bumping into things. Those are all experiences that many people with and without ADHD can have, and they're not really related to ADHD. On the contrary side, things that are related to ADHD are having difficulty concentrating, making careless mistake, being restless, or feeling like you're driven by a motor. And importantly, those things have to be present since you were a child, since ADHD is a neurodevelopmental disorder. They have to be excessive, and they have to cause you personal distress or impairment in some important area of your life.
Well, Vasileia Karasavva is a clinical psychology PhD student at the University of British Columbia. Vasileia, thanks for talking to me today. I really appreciate the chat.
Thank you.
Like what you hear but missed part of the show? Want to stream the last show on demand? Or missed a night? Want to catch up? Well, I got good news for you. The last show is available as a podcast. Just head on over to www.lastshow.pizza. That's .pizza, not .com. Lastshow.pizza. And there you can find out more about our podcast. And find links to our social media. Give us a follow. Are your little kids jerks? Want to make them nicer? Well, I've got the secret ingredient, and it's a literal ingredient that could make kids kinder, less grumpy. If only we just added one simple food to their diet. Fish, glorious fish. And you probably don't have to worry too much about mercury, although it is a consideration. After the break, we will talk to someone who combed through lots of data and found that fish, glorious fish, makes your kid nicer. And what if your kid hates fish? Well, we may still have an answer for you. So how does kindness connect to fish and kids? Answers coming up next.
Want to be part of the last show with David Cooper? Call us and join the conversation. 1-888-505-6644. Broadcasting intimate details and useless information from an undisclosed location in New York City. The Last Show with David Cooper.
Can fish make kids nicer? Eating fish. I know it sounds a little weird, but bear with me. Science says it's true, but what if your kid hates fish? Are they doomed to be a grumpy jerk like me forever? Well, our guest today is one of the people behind the study that made the link between kind kids and eating fish. So is salmon the secret to raising a sweetheart? Or can we just sneak fish oil into their juice boxes? I'm here with Dr. Caroline Taylor, an associate professor of nutrition at the University of Bristol. Caroline, welcome to the show.
That's my pleasure.
So what did your study actually do? What did you find about kids, fish, and kindness?
Okay. This study is based on data from a much larger study called the Children of the 90s study, which is based here in Bristol in the UK. And we used some of the data from that study to find out about how much fish children were eating when they were about 7 years old. And then we looked at some tests. So we looked at particularly a range of tests that includes measures of sociability and ability to cooperate and be kind to other people. And those are the kind of foundation blocks of good relationships in societies and good communities. And what we found was that children who ate more fish when they were 7 were much more likely to rate high on this, what we call a pro-social scale, when they were age 7 and when they were age 9 as well. And that meant that they were more likely to be considerate of other people's feelings, to share their toys and resources more readily with other children. They were more helpful if other children were hurt or upset, and they were kinder to other children.
We'll call these pro-social behaviors, I guess.
Yes, that's absolutely right. Yes, indeed they are.
Are there specific things in fish that are believed to contribute to this? Like, is the mechanism of eating more fish to kindness in kids well understood, or is it just a correlation that you found?
It's not just a correlation because we were able to correct for things like socioeconomic status and the education of the parents. So we were able to sort of take away the effects of other things that might sort of muddy the relationship between the fish intake and the pro-social behaviour. So while we can't say that it's completely causal, there's certainly a relationship between the two. We don't know why this happens in a huge amount of detail, but we are fairly sure that it's to do with the special nutrients that fish can provide that are essential for aspects of children's development. And that would include nutrients such as omega-3 fatty acids, minerals like selenium and iodine, vitamin D, lots of things which are essential for brain development. And it might be something about one of those individual nutrients, or it might be more than one, or it might be something about the mix of the nutrients. We just don't really know that.
I often hear that certain kinds of fish contains pollutants. Mercury often gets floated around, but I don't have a good understanding, and I think a lot of the people I talk to don't have a good understanding of how much mercury is in fish. Do you worry that parents avoid giving kids their fish these days because of these concerns when they shouldn't have them?
They definitely do. And we know that certainly in the UK, children and adults eat far less fish than they're actually recommended to do. And because they're doing that, children are missing out on the good and essential nutrients that fish can provide. We've done other work in this database, the children of the 90s, looking at mercury exposure, particularly during pregnancy, and how that affects the development of the child in utero and in the mother's womb and after it's born. And certainly at the levels of fish that people are eating in the UK, the positively beneficial effects of fish seem to outweigh the bad effects of the mercury. So our message is very, very much supportive of eating fish, both for pregnant women, children, and the population in general.
I know you're not a fishologist, and yes, I just made that up, but are there certain ones to avoid or maybe have less of, or is what you're finding, like, kind of just eat as much fish as you want? If you're having tuna 45 times a day, then maybe it's a problem, but generally it's not one?
It's slightly more nuanced than that. In the UK, the recommendations are that you eat at least 2 portions of fish a week, one of which should be oily. But for children and pregnant women, they're recommended to avoid completely eating the very high mercury species. So that would be things like shark and swordfish and marlin. But really very few people eat those kind of fish in the UK anyway. So it's not too much of a worry. And also for pregnancy and for children, there's a kind of cap on how much tuna you should have. So no more than 4 tins a week, which is a lot of tuna.
It is.
So you're not really in danger of exceeding that limit.
I want to latch on to what you said. You said one of these portions should be oily. Yeah. Oil, fish oil. I know you can buy supplements like cod liver oil and salmon oil. And I know that if you eat them, your burps end up smelling like fish. So that's a discussion for perhaps another specialist. Are there supplements we can take to get these benefits or give to our kids to get these benefits if they don't like eating fish?
Well, as nutritionists, our line is always, it's much better to eat the food rather than take a supplement, because then you're getting the benefits of a mix of nutrients. But if your child really doesn't like fish, or perhaps if you don't like fish yourself, you can buy supplements of omega-3 fatty acids. And there are 2 different types. There are fish liver-based ones, and there are vegetarian ones, which are based on algae. The ones that are fish liver-based are not recommended for pregnancy, and you're better off in that case taking the vegetarian algae-based ones. For children, there are special ones that you can buy that are just the right dose, and they would be absolutely fine. But really, it would be better if they ate the fish.
Let's talk IQ. Did you look into the connection between IQ tests and fish consumption in kids?
We did. We looked at IQ at age 7 in our group of children, and we didn't find any link between fish intakes and IQ. So there could be a number of reasons for that. It could be that there definitely is no association, or it could be something to do with the way that IQ is measured. It's not a terribly easy test to do. It's not very sensitive. Maybe we're just not picking up with the IQ test small differences between children's IQ. So I think the jury's still out on that one.
Any other surprising things you found while conducting the study?
I think I have not been surprised at how little fish most people eat. And I'm still kind of disappointed by that, because as nutritionists and, in my sort of circles, we've been advocating for fish for quite a long time, and we don't seem to have made any progress on that. And that's a little bit disappointing. So every opportunity I get, I'm always keen to promote fish.
Well, I'm glad we're here to promote it. Well, should be people be eating less red meat and more fish? Would that be the general takeaway for this? And
most
definitely give it to your kids?
Yes, most definitely. And definitely give it to your kids. Yes, at least 2 portions a week.
Delicious. Any recommendations for recipes? I like having salmon with crispy skin in the old cast iron pan.
That sounds absolutely delicious. I can't claim to be a cookery expert, but there's lots of material out there on the internet, lots of cookbooks and lots of people who publish very tasty fish recipes.
All right, you heard it. You heard it here first. Giving your kids fish makes them nicer. I'm here with Dr. Caroline Taylor. Caroline, thank you for walking through your study with me. I'm glad we got a chance to warn people of the awful burps you make when you take those supplements. And real fish is better than the pills, I think, or tablets, as you call them.
Definitely.
I appreciate your time, Caroline.
Thank you.
Dr. Caroline Taylor is an associate professor of nutrition at the University of Bristol. Oh, you're going to love what's coming up. It's clickbait with a comedian. What does that mean? We'll take the stupidest top 10 articles from the internet. Articles like 10 things your cat needs to do to pass a math test. You won't believe what happens next. Okay, they won't be that stupid, but we'll go over clickbait articles with a comedian and have some laughs. You won't believe what happens next. Coming up after the break.
Want to be part of the last show with David Cooper? Call us and join the conversation. 1-888-505-6644. Broadcasting intimate confessions and useless obsessions. You're listening to The Last Show with David Cooper.
And now we take the dumbest clickbait stories we could find on the whole of the internet. Like, you won't believe these 10 steps to divorce your husband's wife, or whatever. We are joined by comedian Natasha Vinik to discuss these, to go through them. This should be fun. I hope, I pray. Natasha, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. I'm so excited about this article about 10 ways to divorce your husband's wife.
Yeah, she's been bothering me, really. All right. If you recognize these 8 signs, you've outstayed your welcome in someone's home. On the website Global English Editing, which is one of the most famous magazines, a highbrow literary publication. We all know it, globalenglished.editing.com.
I get it delivered to my home every day. Well, my friend's home. I'm overstaying my welcome right now, so I should be very familiar with these signs.
I chose it for that reason. Sign number 1, your host is constantly checking the time. I guess looking at their watch?
What if they're just preoccupied and anxious?
That's what your host has been telling you they are, but in fact, they're well adjusted. They are medicated for anxiety and they're not anxious at all. They just want you to leave.
And they just want you out. That's so funny. One of my tricks when I'm trying to end a thing or an interaction is I'm like, so what are you up to after this? So that's, I think, the same thing, right?
Exactly right, which I think lends itself nicely to number 2. You're always the last one to leave. Do you find that you're the one at a party or when you're at a social gathering?
I love to leave more than anything. I love to leave.
Nothing gives me, well, the greatest joy, and this is a John Mulaney bit, is canceling the plans to begin with. But
love canceling the plan to begin with, but second place, leaving. I learned it from my dad. Big fan.
I have noticed every now and again, and maybe this is a man thing, I have like a man friend who's not particularly charismatic, good looking, or cool. Just like a neutral guy. But one quality that he has is he's always the last one to leave the party. And as a result, they sleep with a lot of people. I know 4 or 5 of this archetype where just at the end of the night, it's the people who want to get busy and they hang around and I always miss them, you know?
He's waiting for the stragglers? Is it waiting for the stragglers?
I don't think it has that ugly angle of like, I'm waiting for the drunk person. It's just like, I'm waiting for that other person who always wants to go on to the next time. And eventually that's going to be a woman who wants to sleep. And if I'm always waiting at the end, there's going to be another end waiter who wants to.
I will be available.
Exactly. No, he's not, the one that I'm thinking of is not like I'm going to a nightclub to find someone drunk. That's another gross thing that I'm talking about.
Yeah, I see that. It's scary.
Yeah, that's, no. I mean, I'm sure there are men out there like that, but no.
Yes.
Number 3, they're not engaging in the conversation. Is your host currently not speaking to you very much where you're staying?
Yikes. This sounds just like kind of a basic social cues article, huh?
Yeah. Look, I got to say, globalenglished.editing.com is not doing an amazing job like they normally do. A lot of the New York Times reporters went there. You know, it really collects some of the greatest minds.
Yeah, this is good. This is a generally like how to know you're unwanted article, just in general.
Number 4, they've run out of refreshments and you linger.
Oh, oof. That's rough because I love a refreshment.
Who doesn't? Number 5, the atmosphere feels different somehow.
The vibe has changed. The vibe is off.
Number 6, they've stopped making future plans with you.
Oof. That's a bummer, huh?
That happens to me a lot, and I know for a fact I don't outstay my welcome because I'm always the first one to leave. It's other
People
reasons.
are like, we've just had enough of him.
Yeah, that's generally and that's generally how you're feeling right now as we get halfway through Clickbait with Natasha Vinik. Number 7, they've started to reclaim their space. You're staying with a friend. Is that room being more and more used to store the owner's property?
It's so interesting. Yeah, they're suddenly like, let me move my own bed into this, actually.
No, I just mean like, oh, actually, that closet I said you could use, my coat's going in there.
Exactly. Actually, that whole desk you could use, my husband lives there now. You are out. Yeah, I think that's a good way to know.
This last one, I think, goes deep, and it has a colon in it.
I'm nervous.
Trust your intuition, colon. It's all about empathy.
Wow, I think that one is kind of useless. If you're someone who needs the rest of this article, that last one does not pertain to you.
Yeah.
The implication is you don't actually have any intuition.
Yes.
Don't trust it.
How do we rate this clickbait article from Global English Editing? I don't know why I'm giving this company free advertising. That's such a funny... Who creates a publication called Global English Editing? Like what? Never mind. How did you rate it?
0 out of 10.
0 stars. Love it. 0 stars would not do again.
Would not do again.
All right, we got a little bit of time. Top 3 things couples fight about. This one's from Psychology Today, so this one might not be so clickbaity.
Well, it depends on when today it was. Was today like 10 years ago? Or was today like today?
It's March 17th. This was 3 days ago.
Oh, this is recent. All right, let's see what they offer us.
Money mayhem, when dollars cause drama. It's no secret that money troubles constrain relationships. Well, yeah.
That's true.
Yeah.
That's just a true thing, right? We just tell true things to each other.
Have you fought much about money with your various gentlemen callers?
I've had some be like, hey, I know you have no job, but I'd like you to pay for half of things too. I've had that happen.
Rude is what that is.
It's kind of rude.
How dare you? How dare you? How dare you? You're a traditional guy, Natasha.
Yeah, I'm a simple man.
Chore Wars, the battle for the broom. This is good. I like the way. It's very clickbaity. I like it.
These are fun. So far, I'm the bad guy in 2 out of 3 of these.
Oh, boy.
I'm a mess.
Do you not do any chores?
I'm just messy. I'm a messy girl. Messy girl.
We fight over chores, my lovely.
Like, you really want to do chores so bad that you're fighting over who gets to do them? Is that what you're saying?
What a wild interpretation of what I just said. No.
Please let me do dishes, please.
We try not to get in the Cold War of like, you didn't do the thing, so I'm going to leave it out. Like sometimes if I don't clear dinner enough that night, she'll just clear her own plate. Or like I won't empty the dishwasher if I found myself loading it and emptying it and loading it and emptying it. Having said that, we try not to do that kind of passive aggressive
Yeah, that's
BS.
good. I like that.
But there's also like you got to divide the chores. Like she hates taking out the garbage. I'll do that.
Yeah.
And I don't like doing the laundry, so she does that. Like, there's fairness in the division.
Yeah, you tolerate certain things better than others and you give half to half and half to the other. I think that's reasonable.
Number 3 in top 3 things couples fight about. Diverging dreams when your goals don't align.
Well, I didn't see this one coming. The last 2 are kind of pragmatic and this one's very in the air, but reasonable.
Yeah, I was on a show yesterday and we were taking like listener letters, like Ask Alice kind of thing. And one of them is like, my husband wants to do a career change, but we got a house, we got a mortgage, we got kids, we got a lifestyle that depends on that paycheck. And here he is wanting to start all over again at like 40 something. And I'm like, it's a really subtle way to say, hey, I'm willing to blow up this marriage because I'm unhappy,
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. It's hard because when it's like a guy around that age, you're like, is this real or is this midlife crisis?
Is there a difference?
No, not for a man.
That's a weird one when you've got like, that's why you shouldn't have kids or buy a house with someone is my advice.
That's what I think. Don't get married until you're 50.
70, 80.
90.
Yeah.
Just one good year of marriage and then dead.
Yep.
That's the dream.
I'm divorced. Natasha, tell me about one of your podcasts.
One of them is called When Harry Dumps Sally.
Oh my God.
It's what happens after the credits roll in a rom-com. Does a couple stay together? For how long? Who breaks up with who?
Did Harry and Sally stay together or break up?
We haven't done that film yet.
Oh, that should be like your finale, right?
I think it should be like episode 100 or something.
What is there one particular one that stands out?
I mean, a lot of our first one was Sleepless in Seattle. That was a lot of fun. That's a crazy film. And our most recent one that's out was The Wedding Singer, which I hate to be a spoiler. That's our first forever couple that we think stays together forever.
Natasha Vinik is a comedian based out of San Francisco. Where can people find you online, Natasha?
On Instagram, on TikTok, and everywhere at Natasha Vinik, Vinik.
Boom. Thank you, Ms. Clickbait. I appreciate your time.
Thank you.
You're up on the latest slime science, right? You've read the Journal of Molecular Liquids, of course. Well, in case you haven't, you may be shocked to find a new slime that could shock you, literally. And what's crazy about a brand new slime is, one, I thought they'd come up with all the slimes they could come up with. And two, this amazing discovery could lead to a future where slime could be used to treat you medically in hospitals. It's amazing. It's going to change your life. And it's slime. All that up next.
Want to be part of the last show with David Cooper? Call us and join the conversation. 1-888-505-6644. The Last Show with David Cooper, where we apply quantum mechanical psychoanalytical astrotherapy to your problems.
We all read the Journal of Molecular Liquids, right? But in case you haven't caught the most recent issue, in it is some shocking news. Literally, like it could shock you. It's the latest in slime news. I am joined by Associate Professor Erica Pensini from the University of Guelph, who has created a wacky new slime that can generate electricity and maybe even help heal wounds. I'm excited to talk slime with you, Erica. Thanks for joining me today.
Thank you so much.
Did you ever think you'd spend your career making world-changing slime, or did your most recent discovery take you by surprise?
I am a person that works in water. So I was trying to remove contaminants from water. And then, well, I'm not going to fill you in with all the details, but essentially we figured out that certain structures could generate electricity when you squish them or you stretch them. And here you go. So we were caught by surprise to a degree.
I know like what carbon is, what hydrogen is. What is slime? Like, how would you rigorously define slime in the academic sense? Is it a solution? Is it a bunch of chemicals? What is a slime?
Yeah, so essentially, first things first, you have to have some sort of gel. If you think about slime, it's a gel. So what is a gel? It's a mixture of molecules, so little particles, if you will, that are bonded together somehow, right? If you have a rubber band, you have a rubber band because everything is connected in the rubber band. If the two sides of the rubber band were disconnected, then you wouldn't be able to stretch anything. Okay, so that's in a nutshell, slime. So how did we make the slime? I can tell you that too if you want.
Sure. Is it a secret proprietary slime, or is this there for the world to know?
It's there for the world to know. And I even showed some people how to make it. So it's really easy. You just have to add in 3 things. So easier than cooking a cake where you have way more ingredients. So what we did was add an amino acid, which is a building block of our protein. So you can buy some of these things in a nutrition store for health and sports, etc. So you buy these amino acids. Then you take oleic acid or linoleic acid. Those are components of olive oil or linseed oil. You mix them in with a lot of water. You whip them.
Wait. I know the technical term. You emulsify them. Did I get it right?
Yeah, you kind of emulsify them. You mix them. Yes, and that's,
I didn't get it right, did I? No, I didn't.
it's good. It's good. And when you do that, then you get a slime, which is something that looks like this. I'm not sure how well you can see it, but I put it on my hands, and it's a kind of like slime. Yeah.
Why is it so surprising that a slime like your recent discovery should conduct electricity? Do most slimes, are they insulators? Do they mostly not conduct electricity?
Yeah, so, they can conduct electricity, but a piezoelectric material is more than just a conductive material. It is actually something that generates electricity when you squish it or you stretch it. So it doesn't just conduct, right? So if you take a wire, as an example, a wire conducts electricity. But if you start folding it and bending it around, unless it's connected to a battery or to some sort of like power source or plug, then it will not spontaneously generate electricity. These materials instead transform mechanical energy into electrical energy. That's what's special about them.
That is really cool. Are there applications in health? Are there applications for medical devices? Like what could this slime be used for that's so exciting?
Yes. So I think that the most exciting potential of this particular piezoelectric material is medical. And why do I think it's particularly well suited? Because it has all components that are completely natural. It has so much water. So we are dirty bags of mostly water, as you would say in an old Star Trek or sci-fi movie, right? So we have a lot of water, and this slime contains a lot of water. So essentially, it's really similar to our body, and therefore it is well suited to heal wounds. When you look at our skin, you probably don't notice it, but it is also piezoelectric. So if you cut your skin, it will start you will have stresses form. You'll deform it because it's cut, right? And this forms electric fields spontaneously in the body. And these electric fields call the healing cells to the injured area. Now, if you add something that makes these electric fields stronger, then you have the potential of enhancing healing. Okay, so this is one application.
Wow.
We're also developing other materials that are better suited to produce a lot of electricity. This produces some electricity, you might want to produce even more. So we're creating a suite for different applications, including detection of movement, gait, etc.
Sounds like we're entering a golden age of slime, where slime could be used to solve all the world's problems, or at least a tiny subset of them.
Well, a tiny subset, but a cool tiny subset of problems, possibly.
Now, slime could heal wounds. It generates electricity spontaneously. Should we be concerned that more things could happen with slime, them gaining sentience? You mentioned Star Trek. I worry that the slime, I kid, of course.
Yeah. Well, I mean, this is particularly benign as a material, right? I mean, we can design materials that are not completely bio-based, but they generate a lot of electricity. But in general, being a person that cares about water, being an environmental engineer, I try really hard to make materials that are completely benign, bio-based. I don't want to solve a problem by creating another problem, right? So
I love how you just took my ridiculous question of sentient slime and gave a really thoughtful answer.
There you go.
Are there any other applications, like in the distant future, that we could be using slimes for that we once thought slime was not a good use case?
Well, I think that one potential applications, and I need to work on this, is to detect contaminants in water. I already told you that I like water, and I like to detect contaminants in water, right? So imagine that you have a material that interacts with a contaminant and then changes its properties. Maybe it is piezoelectric and then it stops being piezoelectric, or it's not piezoelectric and then it starts being piezoelectric. So can we use these materials to detect contaminants? So pollutant detection, energy production, possibly wound healing. And of course, for each application, you have to optimize the material. It's not like the slime I made will work for all. We need to make other slimes, essentially, or other gels.
You mentioned this was an accidental discovery?
Yeah, I was. I was actually concerned about amines in water, and I wanted to remove them. So I took a surfactant, so a soap. Okay, I took oleic acid, which is a soap. And I put it in water, and I was hoping that it would remove them. Well, it did something else. It made a gel. And then we started examining this gel, and we said, oh, but it's piezoelectric. Okay, now can we make another one that is completely bio-based and benign, that is also piezoelectric, maybe even more so? And can we understand the correlation between structure and performance? And the rest is history.
Now, you published in the Journal of Molecular Liquids, like I mentioned. What's the response in the academic and the scientific community been to this discovery?
Yeah, I mean, I published there. I published in iScience, and people seem to like this. So people have started talking about it. So, you know, when you publish these journals, it's academics that are reading them. But I am happy that the general public, people like yourself, are also helping me spread the word, right? Because at the end, I am a person that works for the public, right? I'm not just here to publish papers that are read by other academics and not interesting to anybody else, right?
Is it a good read off the shelf? Is it as exciting as, let's say, a tabloid of the Journal of Molecular Liquids, or would it be pretty dry for someone like me?
Well, I think you know what, maybe there's some details that you might not grasp or you might not enjoy reading. I think that you can. There's nice images, right? And iScience is an open access journal. I think the Journal of Molecular Liquids is also open access, and at most you will miss some details. You can always give me a call and I'll explain them to you.
Well, thanks so much for talking to me about your latest discovery. It's exciting stuff, and maybe it's the future of healing cuts and wounds and all kinds of interesting stuff like that. Erica, I appreciate your time.
Thank you. Me too.
Dr. Erica Pensini is an associate professor at the University of Guelph. That's the show. Thank you for listening to it. These are the last few moments of the last show. The show is over, but you can always leave us a voicemail. The number is 1-888-505-6644. I'll play it on the show. See you tomorrow night when it'll be another last show. I am David Cooper.